The Trump administration is now targeting legal citizens of Hispanic descent. So Washington Post says, on paper, he's a devoted U.S. citizen. His official birth certificate shows he was delivered by a midwife in Brownsville at the southern tip of Texas. He spent his life wearing American uniforms, 3 years as a private in the Army, then as a cadet in the Border Patrol, and now as a state prison guard. But when Juan, 40 years old, applied to renew his U.S. passport this year, the government's response floored him. In a letter, the State Department said it didn't believe he was an American citizen. As he would later learn, Juan is one of a growing number of people whose official birth records show they were born in the United States, but who are now being denied passports. Their citizenship suddenly thrown into question. The Trump administration is accusing hundreds and possibly thousands of Hispanics along the border of using fraudulent birth certificates since they were babies, and it is undertaking a widespread crackdown. In a statement, the State Department said it has not changed policy or practice regarding the adjudication of passport applications, adding that the U.S.-Mexico border region happens to be an area of the country where there has been a significant incidence of citizenship fraud. So let's review. The dude is born in Texas with a birth certificate to prove it, but they say, oh, it could be fraudulent. Where have I heard that before? Trump being obsessed with a potentially fraudulent birth certificate. He spent 3 years in the Army. He was a cadet in Border Patrol, and he's a state prison guard. So his entire life, he's been, like, in the government, serving the government. And now they're like, yeah, but we're not going to renew your passport. And look out. Listen, and this isn't a standalone issue. This has happened a number of times. We've spoken about people who fought in the military and then they were deported. And shocker, it always happens to be that they're of Hispanic descent. So, you know, it's quite a curious policy to enact when there are accusations that you are kind of white nationalisty, that at the very least you pander to that crowd and you're white nationalist light. It's a curious policy to take when that's a key counter argument to what you're doing. And then you move along and prove it. I mean, these actions are indefensible. And listen, man, I've spoken about this before. I think that the left should be clear. I'm in favor of deportations for people who are undocumented immigrants and criminals. So violent criminals who are undocumented immigrants. You want to deport them? Deport them. No problem with that whatsoever. But outside of that, we should have a path to citizenship for the people who are here, who are undocumented immigrants, who are contributing to society and who are no problem to anybody. Of course we should have a path to citizenship for them. There's no doubt about that. And should we immediately stop all deportations of people who fought in the fucking military? Are you kidding me? This is really a question that we have to ask? I mean, you would think like, oh, okay, you earned being here. You almost died for the country, or you potentially could have because of what you signed up for, and they're deporting these people? Goddamn. I mean, we all knew on some level that when he rails against undocumented immigrants, he doesn't mean like white undocumented immigrants, but to have such a stark, clear example of it rubbed in your face, it's like, oh, wow. They really do have that. It's a deeply bigoted streak that oftentimes comes out in the policies that they implement. And we've seen it. Remember when Trump did the Muslim ban, the famous speech where he said, we need a, quote, total and complete shutdown of Muslims coming into the U.S. But that's like the definition of bigotry. He's not saying, hey, there are some jihadists and we should look out for them, because that's a totally fine statement and totally reasonable. He said a total and complete. So in other words, if you're Muslim, if you're part of the 1.6 billion people that are in that group, close enough to Al-Qaeda. That's the mindset, which is fucking crazy. You know, the idea of a nationwide stop and frisk program, when stop and frisk has been proven to go after the wrong people and overwhelmingly a crackdown on the minority communities, when we know it doesn't even work. So, yeah, that's a bigoted position. So there's a lot of that stuff going on where I feel like they try to leave themselves wiggle room to be like, that's not bigoted. But then when stories come out like this, you go, oh. And there are many examples of this, too. This isn't the only guy. But, people who have a Hispanic background, but who are legal citizens, and then it doesn't matter how American they act, you still might get kicked out. And there have been stories of people who even supported Trump, and then they found out, oh shit, he's even coming after legal immigrants. And then they're like, oh, I didn't know he meant that. Well, yes, he did. Yes, he did. And it's not to give Obama a pass for his horrific immigration policies, because I would argue he was too far to the right on immigration. But certainly this appears to be a step further and should be inexcusable to absolutely everybody.